Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our ICAI Town Hall, where you will have an opportunity to learn more about ICAI membership benefits, additional conference opportunities, research and institutional assessments focused on academic integrity, and more. I'm Dr. Azalea Holbert, Director of Academic Integrity at West Virginia University and an ICAI board member. Before we get underway, please remember to remain muted whenever you're not speaking and to use the chat function for any questions. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to my colleagues who will be sharing more today. First, we have Dr. Camilla J. Roberts, ICAI Board President and Director of the Kansas State University Honor and Integrity System. We have Dr. David Rettinger, past ICAI Board President and Professor of Psychological Science and Director of Academic Integrity Programs at the University of Mary Washington. We have Dr. James Orr, ICAI Board Treasurer and Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and Strategic Enrollment, University of Memphis. And the ICAI board is also represented at this convening by Dr. Douglas Harrison, Vice President and Dean of the School of Cybersecurity and Information Technology at the University of Maryland Global Campus. We heard from Doug yesterday during his outstanding plenary session, but he was unable to join us today. Now I will turn to my colleagues who each will take a few minutes to talk through some aspects of ICAI and our role as an organization. I'm going to start with Dr. Camilla Roberts, who will offer a brief history of ICAI, our goals and fundamental values, and the upcoming virtual conference in March.
Thanks, Azalea. I want to welcome all of you to this. You're finishing up the second day of this conference, and I know for many of you, this might be your first interaction with ICAI, either through the Mid-Atlantic region or through the entire entity of ICAI. And so for many of you, you might not know exactly what ICAI is. And so I wanted to give a pretty quick, brief history for you that started back in 1992. Back in October of 1992, the Center for Academic Integrity was officially founded. Some of the key founders were Don Mccabe, Jim Lyons, Bill Kibler, and Sally Cole of Stanford University, Gary Pavella of University of Maryland, and John Margulis of Northwestern University. Then in March of 1993, just that next spring, the first conference of the Center for Academic Integrity was held at the University of Maryland. A few years later, in 1997, the office and the main runnings of the Center for Academic Integrity transitioned from Stanford to Duke University, which is where Don Mccabe was. In October of 1999 was one of our first major impact statements that the center created. It was, we released the report on the fundamental values of academic integrity. And at that point, there were 5 fundamental values: honesty, trust, respect, fairness, and responsibility. We had another transition in July of 2007 when the offices transitioned from Duke University to Clemson University. And then in 2010, the Center for Academic Integrity realized that we were not just for institutions in the United States, that we needed to really broaden ourselves, and we had broadened ourselves. And so we changed our name to the International Center for Academic Integrity to really follow and mirror what we are trying to do across the globe. And we actually had our first international conference in 2011 in Toronto, Canada. But then in 2014, so just about 15 years after that first set of fundamental values came out, there was a second revision of the fundamental values for academic integrity. And at that point, the leaders in the International Center for Academic Integrity added a 6th value, which was the idea of courage, because they felt like that to have the values of honesty, trust, respect, fairness, and responsibility, our institutions, our students, and our faculty and staff had to have the courage to act out in those fundamental values. In 2016, the center began a split from Clemson University. And in spring of 2018, we actually became an independent nonprofit institution. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit at this point. And so since 2018, we really have had a time of growth and focusing really on the idea of building a culture of academic integrity. And this has really included outreach for our membership and others through regular webinars, both in English and Spanish. We are excited that we have really advanced our mission into Latin America, but also consulting across the globe. Some new and exciting things that are going on right now, and you're probably actually the first conference to really hear about it, is that we have just finalized a third revision of our fundamental values of academic integrity. There is actually a press release that either has gone out this week or is set to still go out. I'm not exactly sure if it's gone out officially, announcing that third edition of the fundamental values. And in this third edition, we don't look and change any of the values. We're still sticking with those 6 values of academic integrity, but we hope that this third edition will really give institutions and individuals examples of what those values look like for themselves and their institutions. And I will note that there will be a full presentation about this new third edition of the fundamental values of academic integrity at our upcoming conference in March. And that moves me a little bit to talk about our upcoming conference. Hopefully you have enjoyed your time over the past 2 days interacting and networking with like-minded individuals who are trying to build that culture of academic integrity at your own institutions. And so we want to give you another opportunity to do that in a larger perspective. It's pretty amazing that this is traditionally just a mid-Atlantic conference, but it's amazing that because it is virtual, you've been able to pull people from all across the globe and not just your own individual region. And so this will just, the conference coming up in March will just be even a larger conference and even have more people that you'd be able to network with. So this year's conference will be held virtually, March 1st through the 4th. And we're really focusing on 4 main themes of academic integrity: technology, policy development, research, and then student and faculty engagement. We do encourage your participation in that upcoming conference. And just to note, we have both individual registrations, or we also have institutional registration. So if your institution is a member of ICAI, the institutional registration for the conference will allow an unlimited number of participants from that institution to be able to log into that conference. So we really hope that you and your colleagues will join us for following up and networking, that you've begun this conference at our annual conference, and help us be able to set some of the goals of what ICAI should be able to be working on and focusing on in the next upcoming years. And one of those main things is definitely the survey, which I know that David will be talking about very shortly. But I'll end there and pass it back to Azalea.
All right, thank you, Camilla. And I will now pass it over to Dr. David Rettinger to talk more about ICAI's research and assessment efforts.
Well, thank you both, Azalea, Camilla. Thank all of you for being here. I was just looking through the all of your blank black screens and headshots while Camilla was talking. I see Nigeria represented. I see Fredericksburg, Virginia, my own colleagues here represented. I think I saw Australia, but I went by kind of quick. That is just amazing for this little mid-Atlantic conference that we started a few years back because I wanted to chat with my colleagues from William and Mary. Times change, and of course, good news and bad news in that regard. Let me start with a quick question, and let me ask you this, just using the thumbs up reactions on Zoom, how many of you are feeling like the number of academic misconduct cases on your campuses or your institutions has been increasing lately? Wow, that was a very fast set of thumbs up, but not universal by any means. And I think that's a healthy skepticism being shown there. Certainly, that's the story that's being peddled in the press. Now we have more cases. I think there's no question in the sense that more are being reported. Virtually everyone I've talked to has said that. However, there's a lot of reasons why the number of cases can go up that doesn't necessarily reflect the amount of academic misconduct that's going on. Now, I think we all understand that it's really difficult to know exactly how much academic misconduct is going on at a given institution because for obvious reasons. Not the least of which being what Amanda just put in the chat, which is that lots of places aren't looking very hard because they don't want to find. There's all sorts of motivated reasons for not wanting to find academic misconduct, ranging from reputational to the very practical. So what ICAI was founded to do, among other things, by Don Mccabe way back in 1992, is build a survey of students and faculty to get a handle on how much academic misconduct is going on. Now, let's be clear. I think everyone involved in the survey understands the limitations of self-report in behaviors like this. However, some of the scholars that we're working with are people who study other kinds of behavior that's hard to disclose, including sexual activity among teenagers, drug use, things like that. So we have a little bit of expertise in that area. Having said that, a survey of students about academic misconduct is only one of the tools that we might use in order to better understand academic misconduct in the broad sense. In the lightning round, we saw some really great pedagogical research done in the classroom, which is invaluable in understanding academic misconduct, as well as collection of institutional data. So in my dotage as the former president of ICAI, I've been spending my time working on the Research and Assessment Committee. And this committee is dedicated to creating an assessment tool for institutions that serves two purposes. Purpose number one is to give institutions actionable data to learn more about their students' behaviors and attitudes to improve the academic integrity culture, as Camilla described. And number two is to provide scholars some standardized methods for studying academic integrity in the behavioral sciences. So in the combination, those two things, those are our two goals. So let me share my screen briefly. Bear with me while I negotiate the technology here. And in so doing, I want to tell you a little bit about the ICAI Mccabe survey. Azalea, can you see what's on my screen as it should be? Wonderful. Let me start my timer so that I don't take too much of everyone's time. So the survey is, right now it's a student survey, and it is right now designed for a North American English audience. The plan is to have it be much more universal over time, but you have to start somewhere, and we want to start there. The survey itself includes items that are designed for those two goals: to help faculty administrators improve that academic integrity culture on campuses and online, and secondarily for scholars to use as well. So what does that mean for practical purposes? Well, first of all, it means that all of the measures on this survey are going to be published. Our pretesting is ongoing, and we'll validate, demonstrate reliability, and publish those survey measures so that they're useful for anyone. So you might say then, why should I become an ICAI member and participate in this survey? And the answer to that is the benchmarking data. The second round of data collection is going to be as big as we can possibly get it. We'd love for every one of your institutions to be institutional partners on this survey and help us collect data so that you can have a sense of where your institution stands relative to the entire North American landscape and relative to schools that are similar to yours. The more schools we get, the more able we will be to do that. Early signups include, well, a tremendous response from the Canadian college and small university system. We've already got 2 or 3 Big Ten schools that are looking at doing it. At least one SEC school that looks like they're going to be starting up pretty soon, and then many smaller schools as well. So what's going to be on the survey? Well, first and foremost, we want to allow institutions to have at least a baseline self-report rate of academic misconduct from the students. We want to help the institutions assess their climate of integrity. And we took that language from the climate surveys that are going around now around all sorts of other really important issues on campuses. And so climate's, of course, a multifaceted concept. Understand students' perspectives, of course. We have to ask them if we want to know what they think. And as I said, to benchmark against other institutions. So let's talk a little bit about how we built it and what's intended to be on it. So it was designed for, by folks who work both on physical campuses and on online institutions to be agnostic of the manner of instruction. And in fact, we do ask about the manner of instruction of students' classes so we can answer the question, are your online classes being treated differently than your in-person classes for those schools where that's relevant? It's intended for 2- and 4-year institutions of all sizes. This means that we can't do every single thing we might want to do to be universal, but we're really trying to make it as useful as possible for as many institutions as possible. Like I said, right now, the first version's in US English, US Canadian English, although no U's, sorry for my Canadian friends. But the plans are already in place to begin the translation process. We have a team in place for the Spanish translation. We've got volunteers for Arabic and the Indonesian national language, and perhaps some some Chinese dialects. So we're moving along rapidly on getting these translations. Ukrainian and Russian are going to be coming down the pike as well. And the survey is, as you might expect, presented online. I won't go too much into the costs or expenses, but the key point for now is that it's completely free this round for ICAI member institutions, and all we would ask for institutions who are not, would be that you join ICAI. We realize that COVID is wreaking havoc on budgets, so please know that we'll work with any institution that wants to join, but for whatever reason is unable to do so. Questions about that can be directed to Camilla. She didn't know I was going to say that. So what's in the survey? Broadly speaking, there are 4 sections of the survey. One is the list of misconduct behaviors. You can imagine what that looks like. We try to describe them rather than referring to them pejoratively, because we all know social desirability effects. No one wants to be branded a cheater, so we try to avoid using words like cheat on the survey when we can. Climate is a multifaceted set of questions involving students learning about academic integrity and morality. Those are highly influenced by the AAC and U value rubric. Next is knowledge of academic integrity policies and practices, and then some beliefs about what's going on their campus. Next are what I'm calling the action variables. And these are psychological variables that have been found in the literature to really be some of the causal mechanisms for academic misconduct. And so we only included ones that we felt that institutions could actually do something about. Impulsivity, for example, is highly associated with academic misconduct, but we don't anticipate institutions can do much about students' relative impulsivity. Motivation towards school, and this is the intrinsic-extrinsic motivation scale that we're talking about. Perceptions of peer beliefs and behaviors. There's a tremendous amount of literature that says that when students perceive that their peers don't care about cheating and that cheating is common on their campus, they're more likely to do so themselves. And some moral values variables, including moral disengagement, which some of you may know as neutralizing attitudes. These are the ability to do things that you know are that are wrong or that are in your moral values set as wrong. So these are attitudes like the professor's so bad I had no choice but to cheat, my friend needed help, things like that. And all those are variables that we think institutions would be helpful to know how students are doing on those, because those are things you can do educational and communications around to make a difference. And to the extent that you can move those variables around, you can actually affect the ultimate amount of misconduct on campuses. Then lastly, a fairly substantial demographic setup, which is not just which is really important for a number of reasons, but not the least of which to make sure that you can assess the equity of use of the system. It's worth worrying about whether the system is being used equitably. Your academic integrity system is used equitably. So what does this thing look like? Well, here's a sneak preview of the behavior section. It actually looks kind of great. I want to give a shout out to the nice people at Alchemer, which is our survey platform. They used to be Survey Gizmo, for those of you who know them by that name. It's funny, we've actually changed this page already in terms of how it's formatted, but you get a sense of how it looks. These are updates of the original Mccabe items. So we now have about 25 of these behavior items. And we've changed some of the language that Mccabe used, but really that it's very highly inspired by his work. Please know that all the items on this survey have been vetted by our panel of experts. There are about 9 of us who are scholars of academic integrity who've been working on it, including folks you've heard of like Tricia Bertram-Gallant and Eric Anderman. We then passed the first draft of the survey around to about 20 or 30 ICAI members who are really knowledgeable on these kinds of things. I am sorry. Got their feedback. We did focus groups with students to make sure the questions resonated and made sense with them. And now we're doing pre-testing to collect data to make sure the scales are valid and reliable. So we feel pretty good about the quality of the survey. We've worked on it for over a year, so we could have done it quicker, but I'm not sure, at least I could have done it any better. So this sounds awesome. You want to be a part of this. How do we go about doing that? Well, be patient. Our next step is to complete final pre-testing, which is happening now. Then we'll have data analysis of that pre-test. We've done data analysis from the first pre-test, so that should go fairly quickly. And then we'll start benchmarking data collection. I say April through December. I hope we can be started before April, and we're not hard stop in December. Institutions can sign up to do this anytime, including 2022 in the spring, if that's better for you. And then as soon as we start to have a bunch of data, we'll be able to start creating those benchmarked institutional reports. You don't want to have those reports before there's enough data to really make reasonable sense of it. If that sounds great, shoot us an email. Our email is survey@academicintegrity.org. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have there that don't get answered now. In the networking session, which is coming up next, there'll be a chance to talk about this more. And if you'd like to get more information in writing or sign up, academicintegrity.org/survey is where all that information is. And with that, I will return the microphone to Azalea. Thank you all.
All right, thank you for that excellent overview. And I will now hand it over to Dr. James Orr to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits that ICAI offers to members.
Thank you all so much for joining us. If I haven't met you, my name is James Orr. I currently serve on the board of directors for ICAI. I'm also the treasurer, and I serve as vice provost for academic affairs and strategic enrollment services. I've been involved with ICAI now for over 15 years, and I have also been involved in terms of having my campuses that I've been at, the 3 different campuses that have also been a member of ICAI. So I feel good about talking to you a little bit about the benefits. And in order to do that, I'm going to share my screen and I'll take you to our membership page. And I just want to talk you through some of the benefits that we have. So I'll share my screen. All right. So what's up now is our membership page. And if you go to the ICAI membership page, it'll give you some information about the membership. But what I do want to do is take a little bit of time and essentially emphasize the importance of being a member and why that's important. And one of the things that we offer if your institution has a membership is you have up to 20 free representatives that can be part of ICAI, that can be part of it, have an individual membership if you have a institutional membership. On my campuses, I found that very helpful in increasing the dialogue and the conversation about academic integrity. Because some of the various messaging that we send out, it allowed multiple people on the campus to see it. You also have access to a lot of printed material and resources that we have that look at academic integrity research and the history of the research. And what's really important is you'll have access to consultants and speakers who can advise on things that range from good pedagogy in terms of academic integrity and how do you create this culture of academic integrity. One of the things that you're participating in right now is one of the regional consortiums. That's really important because it allows you to connect with people in your area and have a conversation about academic integrity. We can also provide assistance in if you're creating an honor code or you're creating a new academic integrity policy or procedure, or maybe you just need some help with revising your procedures. That's a way that we can assist you if you're a member. One of the things that I'll jump to the very bottom of the bullet points here, that as a member, that what we also find is very important is discounted rates to partner organizational conferences and events that we offer throughout the year. ICAI also offers a host of webinars and sessions that members get to see. David just mentioned the survey that members get a chance to utilize, and a host of other things that I think that I found in being on multiple campuses being really important in sort of moving the conversation about academic integrity. But the number one thing that I found that was most important is that you'll have an opportunity to network with colleagues, not only in the United States, but abroad that's having conversations about academic integrity. And that's helpful when you're thinking about how do you implement best practices and strategies. And when you see your number of cases are increasing, being able to connect with other colleagues to know, is that something that's happening just on your campus or if that's happening everywhere. So we'll put a link to the membership page into the chat box. But I do want to encourage you that if you are not a member or if you don't have an institutional membership, I want to encourage you to join and get involved.
All right, thank you, James. I did see there was a question in the chat about whether an institutional membership, whether anyone from the institution could attend the conferences with an institutional registration or only the free representatives. And Camilla, I know you responded to that. Could you talk a little bit more about how we typically do registration for conferences and how the membership benefits folks in that regard?
Yeah, so when we have our face-to-face conferences, of course, you are paying an individual person to attend the conference. However, if they come from an institution that has an institutional membership, they do get a pretty reduced rate for that conference. Because of the virtual conference this year, we are allowing an limited amount of members from that institution to attend. So I do know that there's already been one institution that is a member of ICAI and has paid I believe it's $500 for an institutional registration. And they have over 100 people who are planning on attending part of that conference in March. And so it does not have to be just the initial people that are listed that might have an account onto our website. And so that's one of the things with the membership, when you sign up for an institutional membership, depending on the size of school you are, depends on what tier you're going to be, and that depends on how many official emails can be logged in to be able to get to some of the behind the scenes member only information from our website. That does not stop you though, however, from having something like honor@yourinstitution.edu as an email that you might share that with all members of your honor board so that multiple people can get involved. But that's just the number of actual logins that you would get. But again, since we are doing the virtual conference, we're really opening it up to a lot more people because we're hoping to get people that might not have been able to normally take the time to travel or be able to be there for the entire time. And so wanted to make sure that people were able to do that in a relatively economical way. And while I'm talking about that with the idea of different types of memberships and being involved, is just like this is a regional, we are working on creating other regional areas, again, mainly because we know that not everybody can travel to an annual conference all the time. And it is very beneficial to get to know the people in your own region, to be able to have those conversations about what's going on in a very close contact. And so we are working always to create new regionals. And so I want to mention that, especially since not everybody at this conference or in this call are possibly part of the Mid-Atlantic region. We do have an active Southeast regional group that holds their own conferences. There is the very beginning of an online consortium. So if you're an online institution, no matter where you're at, you can join with the online consortium, and Doug Harrison is really a main contact for that. We do have a regional down in Latin America, but we are very open to creating other regionals. So if you are living in an area that you would like to be able to contact and communicate with people close to you geographically, please contact us, because we can help you get together with other people and start that, just like this Mid-Atlantic. It started with just Virginia and has really grown into Mid-Atlantic. So we encourage you to contact us if that is something of interest. We do have a good partnership with the European Network of Academic Integrity, the ENAI. So if I know there are some people who had registered that were from the UK or other places in Europe. And so I will let you know that if you are a member of ENAI, a member institution or an individual member, you do get the member rates from ICAI, and same as reciprocal. So for those of you in the US, if you have the ability to travel overseas for a conference sometime and want to attend an ENAI conference, they will accept you through their member rate as well. So it's a good partnership with them, because really we are working toward the same thing in terms of academic integrity and building academic integrity across the world. Another very large consortium outside the US is the Canadian Consortium. So if you are a Canadian school, and I think somebody just posted something about that in the chat, but you can definitely join there, and they are very welcome to have people outside of Canada join them. During our traditional annual conference face-to-face, they have normally a day-long event prior to the annual conference for them to discuss what's going on in Canada. I do know that they are going to be meeting ahead of time virtually during our annual conference this year as well. So there's many different ways for you to get involved, to meet people, especially around your own geographical area.
Thank you, Camilla.
And
So
I'll
at
make
this-
one more note too, is that, and one of the things that's really good about being a member is that we provide opportunities for you to get involved on different projects if you'd like to, and to be part of various committees. So you can be a passive member, or you can be as engaged as you want to.
Yeah, excellent point, James. All right, so at this point, we're going to open it up to any questions from the audience. You can either use the chat feature to share questions or raise your virtual hand, and I'll keep an eye on that and call on you. While folks are formulating questions, I just wanted to throw a question out to the three of you. At these regional conferences, we frequently do have people who are new to ICAI and often to academic integrity work more broadly. So with all of the collective experience that you all have, could each of you just share a few thoughts about any advice or encouragement you would give to these colleagues who are new to either academic integrity work or to ICAI?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. Especially from my background, ever since I got into academic integrity, which I'll be honest, I kind of just fell into the field. It was not something I was looking into. It wasn't what I went for my doctorate in. I really just fell into it. But during my professional career with academic integrity, I've always been in an office of either one or two people. Right now, it's a one-person office with one graduate student. And so I really rely on my colleagues through ICAI for people I can talk to, for people I can bounce ideas off of, to complain sometimes, to really ask questions. Are you having the same concern? What are you doing? Because there's not another person at my institution who is going through the exact same things that I am. And so I think that's one of the main benefits of being involved. And like James said, you can be as passive as you want, just looking online, possibly just attending the conferences. But just like most people will say, you get out of ICAI or get out of a committee or organization what you put into it. And so I would highly encourage you, especially if you're new and you want to learn more and you want to see what's going on, to read our upcoming newsletter. We'll have another newsletter coming out in about a week and a half from ICAI, and it'll give you opportunities of how to join different committees, how to be involved, not necessarily a board member, but still being able to get to know people and be able to have your questions and ideas answered. And I told Azalea earlier I wanted to share this, but I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick just so you have it. Wanting to make sure you have this information, that it is how you can connect with ICAI. And so we do have a couple Facebook groups. We have our large main Facebook group, but then one group that I appreciate quite a bit is our discussion group. And so that's an individual group on Facebook. We do have an Instagram account. We do have a Twitter account that I neglected to put up here. But there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with us and be able to ask us questions, figure out how you can get involved, and really learn about how we can help you. So I'll pass it to James or David to answer that question.
Okay, so I'll echo what Camilla said, particularly the Facebook group, because there's a lot of discussion and people regularly post questions, things that their campuses are struggling with. If I was new to academic integrity, there are three things that I think is important to read up on and consider as you go about your work. And one is that there's the adjudication piece, so the very much so how we respond to academic cases of academic dishonesty. So I would think about that in terms of a student development approach. So how do we approach it from an educational lens? So reading as much as you can on restorative justice type approaches. Trisha has some really good things that she's written about really being educational in your approach to responding to academic integrity. Then the second piece, I think that a lot of times when we come to academic integrity, we're aware of, and that's the pedagogy piece that goes on, and really thinking about it from a faculty lens is in terms of How do we construct assignments? How do we deliver things to do it in an educational fashion? And so I would think about it from an education piece, also an adjudication piece. And then the third piece is that oftentimes when we do academic integrity work, we become consumed in academic integrity work. But I would encourage folks to take a step back and think about what are those other areas in the institution, whether it's a teaching and learning center, whether it's the student success initiatives and tutoring centers, how can I incorporate that with my work to better advance the academic integrity initiatives on campus? And I found when you do those three things, you think about it from a student development perspective, you think about it from a teaching and learning perspective, and then you step back and look at what's going on at the institution in terms of student success initiatives, in terms of tutorings and tutoring centers and writing centers, and saying, how can I incorporate or infuse my work with them? That usually you can get buy-in on the campus.
I was going to add stuff. It's hard to do these things with James sometimes because he and I think about things so similarly. What I will do is just elaborate on your last point, though, James, which is the more you, so I know some of you are going to be faculty out there in the room. Some of you are working in academic affairs offices like James does. I know some of you are working in conduct offices like Azalea does. And some of you, like Camilla, more or less stand on your own. And then there are some other roles out there, I know, teaching and learning folks. From a very strategic standpoint, academic integrity affects all of us. And so reaching out to your partners is critically important politically, as well as in terms of doing your job well. Having those, one of the most important things you can do is making sure you have a stable of faculty who are involved in your academic integrity processes in a systematic way. Making sure that you have a student voice in your academic integrity system in whatever systematic way your policies will allow. When no one else will listen to, when no one will listen to you and you're a voice in the wilderness, administrations always listen to students. They don't always do anything about it, but they always listen, right? So have your faculty teammates on board, have your student teammates on board, and then have all of the folks that James mentioned, writing centers, in our campus, a speaking center, digital technology and learning folks, course designers, if you're lucky enough to have such a person on your campus. You name it, there's almost nobody across to dining services, right? Everybody has a role in this, in communicating about a community of integrity. You just have to be creative about how to find it. And everyone hates academic misconduct, and everybody loves talking about those great students who do the great things. So give them the chance to be positive.
And if I might add something else, because David made me think about, because we think of things alike when we're on these panels together. He'll say something and he'll spare something, and we go back and forth a lot like that. Is that one of the things that you'll often hear David say is that we believe in best practices, right? But not every best practice is the best practice for a particular institution. So you want to make sure that you're nimble in your approach and consider the dynamics of your institution. So I was at one institution that was very much so a faculty-driven institution, and so I had to think strategically about how I got students involved. And then I was at another institution that was very much so the students lead the process, and so then we had to say, okay, how do we engage faculty? And so really thinking about your institution and what makes your institution unique and the core values of your institution, and trying to integrate the way you approach academic integrity with the core values of your institution. So if you're an open access institution, you may sanction differently than an institution that's like, a UVA or a Virginia Tech. You may sanction differently than those institutions. So really think about your institution and what the core values are. And the more you can connect your efforts to the core values of your institution, the easier it will be to get support for your academic integrity initiatives.
Let me add one last thing, which is only semi-related to this. I don't know if you get the sense of this already, but one of the reasons that I'm as active in ICAI as I am is because of how incredibly welcoming the people who came before me were to joining this group. I think that James and Camilla and I really started ramping up at around the same time, and I met Azalea around that time as well. And Pam Pringle's on this call, and she's another example. I'm just looking at people on the first page. I'm sure there are others. And to shout out to Trisha Bertram Gallant, who isn't here, these are awesome people who I've gotten to work with through this. And I encourage you to join us because it's an incredibly generous, positive group of people who often deal with stuff that you would not describe as generous and positive, but do so in a really um, encouraging, nurturing way. And so speaking, I'm very grateful for my colleagues and encourage you to become one of them.
All right.
I'll add one thing,
Camilla?
since I don't see a question unless you've gotten a question, Azalea.
No.
But I would
No.
say that especially if your institution is ramping up or wanting to change, especially if you've heard some ideas during this conference and you want to take them back and you want to change, just as a reminder, we're here to help you. We have in the past traveled to institutions, but we're definitely willing to help virtually, having meetings with you, having seminars with your faculty. And so please contact us because like David said, we're willing to help each other. Hopefully you view this as we're open and we, like James said, each institution can be very different. But I think that especially the expertise that is on our board and also the expertise that is really across a lot of the leadership, the people on the committees, we can help you kind of figure out what is best for you and help you through that process. And not do it for you, but guide you, help you with the questions that you need to ask and find those stakeholders to either change or develop your policies, your processes. So know that we are definitely here for you.
ICAI provides consulting, and I think I'm biased, but I think the place to start with this is collecting some data. Survey data, make sure you're organized in terms of your case data, and we'll have some news about those projects coming out as well. But we're going to try to do a systematic collection of case data from schools across the country and across the world as well. Get data, act on your data, learn from your colleagues here at ICAI, repeat.
All right. Well, I think on that excellent piece of advice, we're going to move to the next phase here. So thank you, first of all, to David, James, and Camilla for your fantastic insights. Folks in the audience, please be sure to connect with us via Facebook, on the website, however you want to reach out. At this point, we're going to move our conversations to the next stage where we're going to open up breakout rooms for topical networking conversations. And you may self-select into whichever breakout room is of most interest to you. As a reminder, David Rettinger will facilitate the networking room on the survey. James Orr will facilitate the room on advocacy. Nancy O'Neill on pedagogy. Jen Simons on technology tools. Rob Coyle and Brandy Chateau will facilitate conversation on remote and online learning, and I will facilitate a room on policy. So we will all see you in whatever room is of your interest. And Annika, I know you're going to handle the logistics from here on out. So.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. If you have the most recent version of Zoom, you should be able to self-select into a room of your choice by clicking on the little button that says join next to the name of the room. If you have any trouble with that, I will be here in the main room to help you. Feel free to put which room you'd like to go in the chat if you can't move yourself, or we can have a discussion. So I'm going to open the rooms now and let everyone choose where to go.
Annika,
Yes.
I don't
Hi.
have the most current version. I realized that earlier today I need to update.
No problem, Katie. Where would you like to go?
I don't even know where to look to see which rooms there are.
Okay, so we have the ICAI survey, advocacy,
Okay.
policy, pedagogy, tech tools, and remote and online learning.
All right. I see those now under, okay, I'll try to join. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. Candace, yep, I got you.
Sorry, Annika, where is the listing? I'm so sorry.
You should see a little tab that says breakout rooms. at the
Alright.
bottom, and you can see the list of rooms.
Okay, not good. Don't see
Mm.
a tab. So I must not have the most up to date, and I
No worries.
apologize.
No worries.
Annika, I do have,
Hi,
but it's not letting
Rob.
me actually get in there. So
Okay, hold on. Let's
Thank
get
you.
you in there.
kick me out.
No worries. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alina. Yes. Okay. Sorry, Miss Two is just speaking, but if you want to just tell me where you want to go, I'm happy to put you there.
I think what was the last one on policy, or either that or educational tools, either one.
Yep, we have one on policy and we have one on tech tools.
Let's go to tech tools.
Okay, you got it, Stephanie.
Thank you. So sorry.
No worries.
So it looks like things are working pretty well.
Think so.
Good.
If anyone else needs assistance, please let me know in the chat or you can unmute yourself. For those of you that haven't joined a room yet, you can see the rooms under the breakout rooms and click the little join button next to the name of the room. If for some reason you can't see that, just either unmute and let me know which room you would like to go to and I'll put you there, or just put that in the chat.
Annika, will folks be coming back here
You got
after
it,
the
Brent.
breakouts
They will.
for a closing?
We don't have an official closing, but when I close the breakouts, they'll pop in here. So we'll say thank you and goodbye.
Okay. I'll hang out for that then. And that